Engines roared. Laughter echoed. The alley reeked of gasoline and bad intentions. A circle of leather-clad bikers sneered as they closed in on a lone black teen, his shadow swallowed by their headlights. Jack Crusher Reynolds spat, shoving him back. "Ain't no place for your kind here, boy." The gang erupted, their cruel chuckles bouncing off the walls. But the teen, he barely moved. No fear, no panic, just cold, unsettling calm. They thought he was prey. What these bikers didn't know was they just picked the wrong target. Screen cuts to black. It all started just an hour ago. Jack Crusher. Reynolds wasn't just a biker. He was a menace. A middle-aged brute carved from a world of hate, raised by a father who taught him one rule: power isn't given, it's taken. From the moment he could throw a punch, Jack believed dominance was everything. He ruled by fear, ran his gang, the Iron Fangs, with an iron fist and made damn sure people knew their place, especially black folks. To him, they were weak, subservient, meant to bow. Sitting in a smoke-filled bar earlier that evening, Jack leaned back, chugging his beer. The gang sat around him, their laughter drowning out the jukebox. "Saw a little black punk walking alone yesterday," Jack sneered, slamming his bottle down. "Didn't even look me in the eye. They never do. Scared little rats." The gang erupted in laughter, clapping each other on the back. This was sport to them, hunting, humiliating, reminding people of their place. "Weak," Jack muttered, shaking his head. "They ain't got the spine to fight back." That was the problem with never being challenged. Jack believed his own hype. So when they later spotted a black teen walking alone, Jack felt that same rush, that thrill. Let's teach him a lesson. Engines roared. Leather boots stomped the pavement. The gang circled, taunting, laughing. Jack smirked, stepping forward. But something was off. The kid didn't flinch, didn't cower, didn't even look afraid. Jack had spent years breaking people. Tonight, he was the one about to be broken. The night air was thick with gasoline and bad intentions. The deep, guttural roar of motorcycle engines shattered the silence as the Iron Fangs tore through the empty streets, their headlights cutting through the darkness like predator eyes. Jack Crusher Reynolds led the pack, gripping his handlebars with the confidence of a man who had never been challenged. His gang followed, leather jackets whipping in the wind, laughter echoing through the small, desolate town. They owned these streets. Then they saw him, a lone black teen walking along the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, head low. No friends, no backup. Jack's lips curled into a smirk. Easy prey. He slowed his bike, the others following suit, engines growling like hungry wolves. "Hey, boy, where you headed?" Jack called out, his voice dripping with mockery. The teen didn't answer, didn't even glance their way, just kept walking, calm, unbothered. Jack's grin faltered. "The hell's this?" he muttered under his breath. Most people flinched when they heard his voice. Most people knew better. The gang laughed, circling the teen like vultures. "Maybe he's deaf," one biker jeered. "Nah, he's just rude," another sneered. Jack revved his engine and gunned the throttle. A cloud of dust shot up, swirling into the teen's face. Still, no reaction, no fear, no anger. Just silence. Jack's jaw tightened. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was used to seeing fear, hearing pleads, watching people shrink under his gaze. "What's wrong, boy?" Jack sneered. "Cat got your tongue?" The teen finally stopped. For the first time, he moved. Slowly, he dusted off his shirt, his fingers brushing away the dirt like an afterthought. Then he looked up, and Jack felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Doubt. That gaze wasn't afraid. It wasn't angry. It was measured, calculating. The gang kept laughing, oblivious to the shift in the air. Jack wasn't. His fingers tightened on the handlebars, a flicker of irritation crawling up his spine. This wasn't normal. "Look at him," one biker scoffed. "Little punk thinks he's tough." Jack smirked again, pushing aside the unease. "Yeah, let's see how tough he really is." He killed the engine. The others followed. The silence that followed was louder than the roaring bikes. Jack swung his leg over and stepped off, boots crunching against the gravel. His gang mirrored him, their heavy steps closing in like a death sentence. Still, the teen didn't move, didn't speak. Jack stood just inches away now, towering over him, expecting the familiar signs of submission, the flicker of fear in the eyes, the hesitant step back, the slight tremble. But there was none. Just that same calm, that same unreadable gaze. Jack's fingers twitched. "You lost, boy," he taunted, pushing a rough hand against the teen's chest. "Or just plain stupid?" The gang howled with laughter, emboldened. But Jack wasn't laughing anymore. Because for the first time in his life, he had the sickening feeling that he wasn't the predator. And the kid in front of him? He wasn't prey. He was something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something that, in just a few seconds, would tear their entire world apart. The victim's introduction and empathy buildup, 750 words. The black teen stood still, his hands in his pockets, his breathing slow and steady. The roar of motorcycle engines had died down, replaced by the cocky chuckles of the iron fangs. They circled like vultures, their boots crunching the pavement as they closed in. But he didn't move, didn't flinch. Not because he wasn't afraid, because he'd been trained for this. His name was Malik Carter, and trouble had followed him his entire life. Growing up in one of the toughest neighborhoods in the city, Malik learned early that the world wasn't kind to people like him. His father, a former Marine, saw the dangers that lurked around every corner and refused to let his son become a victim. "You don't start fights, Malik." His father's voice echoed in his mind, firm yet steady. "But if someone brings a fight to you, you end it." From the age of 7, Malik trained relentlessly. Boxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. His father drilled discipline into him harder than the punches he took in the gym. No wasted movement, no unnecessary aggression. Stay calm. Always stay calm. But now, standing in the middle of a circle of sneering white bikers, Malik felt that old fire creeping up his spine. He hated this feeling, the tightening of his fists, the familiar itch to react. Because he knew, if he gave in, if he let loose, it wouldn't end well. Not for them. "What's wrong, boy?" Jack Reynolds taunted, his breath reeking of alcohol as he shoved Malik again. Malik barely shifted, keeping his weight balanced. Stay calm. Breathe. Don't give them what they want. But his patience was wearing thin. Jack smirked. "Not gonna say anything?" He chuckled, looking back at his gang. Typical. They never got much to say when a real man steps up to him. The bikers laughed. Malik exhaled slowly, feeling his muscles coil beneath his hoodie. He had spent his entire life avoiding situations like this. He wasn't some hothead looking for a fight. He wasn't reckless. He was calculated, controlled, dangerous when necessary. And right now, these fools had no idea they were standing on a landmine. But he still didn't want this. "Only fight when you have to," his father's words rang in his ears. The problem? Tonight, he had to. Jack's smirk twisted into a sneer. Time to teach this one some manners. The bikers moved in. Malik felt it before it even happened. The shift in their weight, the twitch in their muscles, the intent in their eyes. A fist swung toward his face. And in that split second, Malik made his decision. No more warnings, no more waiting. They wanted a fight? They just unleashed a nightmare. In less than 10 seconds, the whole street was about to change. Engines idled low, their growl filling the alley with tension. The gang of bikers watched with knowing smirks, waiting for their leader to handle things. Jack Reynolds stepped off his bike, rolling his shoulders, cracking his knuckles. He had been in plenty of fights before. This one wouldn't be any different. "Let's see if you can fight, kid," he said, his tone dripping with confidence. The gang chuckled, expecting the usual scene to play out. They'd seen it before. A bit of intimidation, a few quick hits, and the target backing down. But something felt off. The teen didn't react, didn't flinch, just watched. Jack frowned slightly but shook it off. This would be over quick. He stepped in fast, throwing a heavy right hook. Whoosh. His fist sliced through the air. Missed. The teen had barely moved, just a subtle shift. a smooth tilt of his head like he saw the punch coming before it was even thrown. Jack's smirk faded slightly. "Wait, what just happened?" someone murmured. The gang's laughter quieted, their amusement flickering into something else. Jack's jaw clenched. He swung again, harder this time. But the teen was already gone, sidestepping effortlessly. Then, bam! A sharp, precise counterstrike landed, a well-placed elbow to Jack's ribs. Pain shot through his side. His breath hitched. His feet faltered. He stumbled back. The gang froze. Jack clutched his ribs, stunned. He had been hit before. But this was different. This wasn't random. This was skill. The teen, still standing, still calm, and for the first time, Jack wasn't sure he was in control anymore. The gang fell silent. Their leader, Jack, clutched his ribs, eyes wide with shock. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The teen hadn't just dodged, he had countered. Precise, controlled, dangerous. For the first time, the Iron Fangs weren't laughing. What would you do in this situation? If you were surrounded, outnumbered, with no way to walk away, would you fight back or would you run? Jack Reynolds staggered back, clutching his side, his face contorted in disbelief. The sharp impact of the teen's counterstrike still pulsed through his ribs. The alley had gone silent. The gang of bikers, once roaring with laughter, now stood frozen, watching their leader struggle to regain his footing. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Jack gritted his teeth, shaking off the pain. "Lucky shot," he spat. He lunged again, faster, angrier. But the teen, he was already moving. A swift pivot, a precise step. Then, bam! Another strike, clean, controlled, devastating. One of the bikers collapsed to the ground, groaning. The gang exchanged uneasy glances. Their grins were gone. Jack felt something foreign clawing at his chest. Was this hesitation? No way. Not from him, not now. Pride pushed him forward. He stepped in again, fists tight, but the teen was unreadable. No flinch, no hesitation. Another biker tried to rush in, but was met with a flawless sidestep. Then, thud. The teen redirected his momentum, sending the second biker stumbling back against the alley wall. Jack's pulse hammered. He wasn't used to this. His whole life, people backed down when he stepped up. But this kid, he wasn't afraid, and Jack was starting to realize he wasn't in control anymore. The gang shifted uncomfortably, some stepping backward. The tension in the alley had completely changed. Then, a new sound. A crowd had started to form, bystanders drawn by the noise. Their phones raised, recording everything. Jack's stomach twisted. They're watching. The gang was exposed. This isn't how it was supposed to go. A sharp voice from the crowd. Did they just get outmatched? Murmurs spread. The weight of public humiliation settled like a stone in Jack's chest. And then, flashing red and blue lights, the distant wail of sirens. The bikers stiffened. Jack's heart pounded. This was bad. The police had arrived. But the teen? He wasn't even breathing hard. As the patrol cars pulled up, Jack could feel the cameras still recording. This moment, his moment of defeat, wasn't just happening. It was about to go viral. And he knew it. The redemption arc, exact 600 words. Jack Reynolds sat in the dimly lit courtroom, his hands gripping the cold steel of the defendant's table. The world had seen his humiliation, but now came the real punishment. The judge's voice rang clear. Probation, mandatory community service, and a permanent record. It wasn't prison, but it was a sentence that would follow him forever. The gang, gone. They had scattered, unwilling to be associated with someone who had been so publicly taken down. His reputation, once built on fear, now reduced to a joke. Jack had spent his whole life taking power from others. Now, for the first time, he had none. Months later, the sun blazed overhead as Jack stacked crates behind a community center on the city's east side. Sweat dripped down his back, but he kept moving. If someone had told him a year ago that he'd be volunteering, working side by side with the same people he used to look down on, he would have laughed in their face. But sitting alone in a cell had given him time to think. For years, he had thrived on intimidation. He believed that power came from taking respect, not earning it. But that night in the alley had broken that illusion. Jack had attacked expecting weakness. Instead, he had met calm, calculated strength. And the worst part? The kid hadn't even been angry. That haunted him the most. He had been fueled by hatred, arrogance, entitlement. And yet, when the roles reversed, the teen had been disciplined, controlled. Jack had lost more than a fight that night. He had lost the war inside himself. A familiar face. The sound of footsteps made him pause. He turned instinctively, bracing himself. Old habits die hard. And there he was, the teen, still the same quiet, composed presence. No anger, no smugness, just observation. Jack felt something heavy in his chest. Shame. The old him would have scoffed, cracked a joke, brushed it off, but the old him didn't exist anymore. So instead, he did something he never thought he would do. He nodded. A simple acknowledgement. No excuses, no justifications. The teen held his gaze for a moment. Then, with the same calmness he had carried that night, he gave a small nod back. No words were exchanged. They weren't needed. Jack turned back to his work, lifting another crate. Redemption wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. It wasn't even guaranteed. But for the first time in his life, Jack wasn't taking anything from anyone. For the first time, he was earning it. Jack Reynolds sat on the stiff plastic chair of the community center's break room, staring blankly at the flickering TV mounted on the wall. His shift had just ended, but he couldn't move. Because there, on the screen, was him. Not just him, his entire downfall. The footage from that night had gone viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments. The headlines were merciless. Biker gang picks wrong target, instant karma. MMA teen destroys racist attackers in self-defense. Justice served. The night fear changed sides. Jack exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of his past squeeze his chest. The world had seen his lowest moment, and now everyone knew the truth. The shocking reveal. The camera cut to a courtroom. The last biker from his old gang, the one who had resisted arrest, the one who refused to accept what had happened, was sitting before a judge. He had no loyalty left to Jack, no reason to protect anyone. And so, he told everything. "We didn't know who he was," the biker muttered, his voice bitter. "We just thought he was some kid walking alone. Easy target." But he swallowed hard. Turns out he wasn't just anyone. He was a trained fighter, a combat athlete preparing for a national tournament. Jack clenched his jaw. The kid had been training for years. A disciplined fighter, a competitor, not just some random teen. He was someone with a future. And they had tried to take that from him. Justice is served. The court sentenced the last biker to serious jail time. The judge's voice echoed in the room. Actions have consequences, and in this case, justice has been served. Jack shut his eyes, exhaling. He had avoided a prison sentence, but his punishment wasn't over. Because no matter how many hours he worked at this community center, no matter how much he tried to change, the world would never forget. But maybe, just maybe, he could live with that. Jack Reynolds had spent years believing that fear equaled power. That respect wasn't given, it was taken. And for a long time, he had been right. People had backed down. They had lowered their heads, stepped aside, let him and the Iron Fangs do whatever they wanted, until that night. Until one calm, quiet black teenager shattered everything Jack thought he knew. Millions of people watched it happen. The video spread like wildfire. Shared, replayed, analyzed. Everyone had an opinion. Some laughed at the gang's humiliation. Others were in shock at how easily the teenager dismantled them. But the truth was undeniable. Jack had picked the wrong fight, and karma came fast. The world saw how he and his gang taunted, pushed, and laughed, believing they were in control. They saw Jack's cocky smirk fade the moment his first punch missed. They saw the instant his confidence turned to fear, when he realized the teenager wasn't just standing there. He was calculating. They saw how, in a matter of seconds, the Iron Fangs were left scrambling. Their leader, the man who had always controlled every situation, was suddenly the one stumbling backward. Jack had spent his whole life bullying others. That night, he got a taste of his own medicine. For the first time, Jack felt true fear, and for the first time, he had to face real consequences. Months later, Jack now worked at a community center doing his court-ordered community service. The world had seen his fall, and now every day he had to live with it. The gang, gone. The reputation, destroyed. The only thing left was a choice: continue down the same path or try to be better. It wasn't easy. Change never is. But every crate he lifted, every hour he put in, it was a step. Maybe a small one. Maybe not enough, but a step. Then one afternoon, Jack heard footsteps behind him. He turned, and there he was, the teenager, calm, still, watching. Jack swallowed hard. His instinct told him to look away, but instead he forced himself to hold the gaze. No fear, no arrogance, just acceptance. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the teen gave him a small nod. Not of pity, not of triumph, just acknowledgement. Jack let out a slow breath, and he nodded back. Redemption wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. But maybe, just maybe, it was possible.